Fear. Fear is something we're all accustomed to. We feel it before an exam. We feel it after we hear a scary story. It's in our movies, video games, and books. Fear causes inexplicable reactions like anxiety. Fear governs a lot of our lives. So as humans, how do we overcome fear? Before we answer that question, we have to know, what is fear? Well, fear is an emotion, just like happiness or sadness. This emotion is triggered by what our brain perceives as threats, which causes a change in our brain, our organ functions, and ultimately, our behavior.
Let's say that you're alone in your house at night, it's dark, and you hear a crash. The nerves in your ears that transduce that sound is the first part of the nervous system in action. That signal is relayed to the thalamus, which is the sort of relay station in the middle of your brain, and then directly to the amygdala via this sort of rough and ready route.
The amygdala is such a critical component of the fear response because it releases several key neurotransmitters in the body.
This message then causes our body to go through different experiences. One of the first responses that our body has to fear is to either freeze up suddenly or to jump up. Now these reactions are always shown. Along with freezing or jumping comes a more important reaction. This reaction in our body is called adrenaline. This causes increase in blood pressure, heart rate, and respiratory rate. Adrenaline is extremely important at survival. As an anonymous writer tells us in Anatomy Notes, without the jolt of energy that adrenaline gives us, surprising and difficult situations would be very hard and near impossible to survive. The next response is very widely known. Some people call it the fight or flight response. As Julia Layton states in How Fear Works, all these physical responses are intended to help you survive a dangerous situation by preparing you to either run for your life or fight for your life. Thus, the term fight or flight. Fear, and the fight or flight response in particular, is an instinct that every animal possesses. These responses that our body has are extremely advantageous most of the time, and this is why we fear. If we ever see a snake in the grass, our fear responses take over and hopefully we survive that situation. But since our fear has turned from life-threatening to whether you should talk to that girl in the hallway or not, controlling our fears are optimal for us. Gradual desensitization. Often, we are afraid of something because we haven't been exposed to it very much. Fear of the unknown. So gradually ease yourself into your fear. Slowly expose yourself to the things you fear. Direct confrontation. Think about facing your fears straight up. With direct confrontation, be prepared for failure. As the short story Facing Fear shows us, Aaron, the main character, directly confronts his fears. Because I can't live a life of what ifs, I need to go on an adventure to get over my fears of not living enough. Don't let momentum swing. When dealing with your fears, you're going to be faced with setbacks, but stay determined. What was one thing you feared, and how did you overcome the fear?
And I no longer fear looking foolish. And because you've seen me as your teacher, I look ridiculous a lot of the time. But I think not being afraid of what other people are going to think of me has been really healthy and really good. And how did I get over that? I really looked at what I wanted, what I was doing, and stopped valuing what other people said about me, because most of that was happening in my own head. You know, when you have a shower, you wash your hair for 4 minutes, and then the other 3 minutes you're having fake fights and conversations and scenarios in your head? Yeah, I stopped doing that. I just took a breath and, decided that I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So it helped. No longer afraid of looking foolish, even though I often look foolish.
Garnet, a 25-year-old Indian, experiences the slow and gradual processes of overcoming fear. After running away from homes, trying to find people who appreciated him, and serving time in jail, his brother Stanley from the reserve contacts him. Garnet and his struggling personality decide to confront his fears and after 20 years meet his family. Garnet develops different types of anxiety and fear due to the lack of stability and appreciation he was given. He was taken away at the age of 3 and hasn't been appreciated or loved once. This created the perfect environment to develop fear. His fears consist of fearing others and their reactions towards his race, fearing himself and his identity as he can't accept who he is, and most importantly, fearing he wouldn't fit in his family. Garnet goes through different stages in life, which gradually help him overcome his fears. It all started when his brother Stanley contacted him in jail, and led to his first big decision for his future. Meet his family or keep living the life in the big city? For many, this decision would be a quick checkmark under family. But Garnet's fear got in between. He feared his family wouldn't accept him for who he was. It took extreme courage for him to confront his fear face to face and meet his family. But he took the chance anyway. Meeting new people every day, Garnet met his mother, his siblings, and Keeper. These family ties he created helped him construct his personality and life. He had people who trusted him, and he trusted. These figures helped Garnet all throughout his first years in the reserve, teaching him traditions, prayers, and culture. Especially Keeper. He quit alcohol and devoted his time to teach Garnet what Garnet's grandfather taught him, in order to pass on the culture that would be lost. The oral tradition, used by many native groups, consists of passing on the culture through legends, stories, and myths orally. Garnet was the next generation, and his family expected him to learn and become a Ojibwe, but he still hadn't decided if he wanted to stay and live the rest of his life in the reserve. And then his other fears came into play. He didn't know what he wanted to do in life. He didn't have a goal. He feared his identity and didn't know who he was. Keeper's hard work paid off once again when Garnet decided to face his fear directly and stay in the reserve.
Garnet's experience can be closely related to a Raven's Aboriginal legend. Raven learns to fly. In this story, Raven is still young and cannot fly yet. Raven asks Eagle for help, and Eagle tells Raven to strengthen his wings. When Raven comes back, Eagle tells him he's ready. Raven is standing on the edge of a steep cliff, but he is afraid. Raven hesitantly flaps his wings, still very afraid. But he's more afraid to miss his chance to fly. Raven then jumps. Amazingly, he flew.
The fact that Garnet's second name is Raven strongly connects the two texts, but both Garnet and Raven have to overcome their fears. Garnet also ends up changing his lifestyle and appreciating life after he met Keeper, just like Raven. We are now going to look at how Garnet specifically overcame his fear. Gradual desensitization. He slowly accepts the fact that he is Indian. We first see this when he meets Lonnie, facing his fears straight up. Garnet completes this when he decides to move to White Dog. Don't let the momentum swing. Even though he goes through many challenges, such as his brother Jackie getting mad at him and not understanding the Ojibwe way, he still keeps on going.